There are more robots on Mars than humans. That has always been true. But today, the machines weren't the ones marching toward us. "They're coming," I shouted, my voice cracking. The words tore out of me before I could stop them. "I can see them," Martha replied, calm as stone, her eyes locked on the horizon. The Martian sky had that sickly yellow haze that comes before a storm, casting the dust-red plain in a strange half-light. Even at this distance, I could make them out, an advancing tide of soldiers in gleaming surface suits, their mirrored visors reflecting the cold sunlight. Behind them came the machines, squat armored crawlers and tall, insect-legged gun platforms, kicking up choking plumes of dust. The whole formation moved like a single living thing, the ground quivering under its approach. My grip tightened around the safety rope strung across our pathetic defense line. If you could call a row of ropes tied to wooden poles a defense. If there's something we can do, it has to be now. Do we even stand a chance? "You'll see soon enough," Martha said, maddeningly serene. She finally turned toward me, and for a moment her face glowing faintly in the yellow light looked almost gentle. I wanted to shake her. "What's the plan?" She just said, "We wait." Wait. For what? Reinforcements weren't coming. If those soldiers reached us, there would be no surrender, no mercy. I'd seen what their weapons could do burning through a man's suit and skin before he even hit the ground. I glanced back toward the shelter, a shallow trench lined with concrete. Nothing inside but medical crates. No guns, no armor. Number. Salvation. The absurdity hit me like a slap. We had volunteers and bandages. They had laser cannons. Was the plan to let them kill us and then patch ourselves up? Martha didn't move. Her eyes stayed fixed on the incoming swarm, her jaw set. It was as if she was watching the sunrise, not an army about to crush us. "Hold on tight," she suddenly barked, her first sharp edge of urgency cutting through the air. Sweat ran down my back. Inside my gloves, my palms were slick. I started to wipe them on my suit, out of habit, stupid, useless, when Martha's voice cracked like a whip. "No, don't let go of the rope." She stepped in close, her movements quick and deliberate now. "Fasten it around your wrist like this." She wrapped her rope around her arm with practiced precision, the fibers biting into her sleeve. "And don't you dare let go." I copied her, my heart pounding harder with every step the enemy took. Their formation was close enough now that I could hear the faint hum of their machines under the low howl of the wind. "What if they don't stop?" I whispered. "They will," she said. The rope in my hands trembled, not from me, but from the faint vibrations coming up from the ground. Something else was moving beneath the surface. That was when I realized maybe Martha's calm wasn't madness. Maybe the plan wasn't to stop them with guns at all. Maybe the real weapon was already waiting under our feet. And so we stood there, bound to the rope, the enemy bearing down on us, the air charged and ready to split seconds from something that would either save us or bury us. For a heartbeat, the world went silent. No wind, no machine hum, just the faint hiss of my own breathing inside the helmet. The enemy formation was still coming. Thousands of boots and mechanical legs moving in unison, but now it felt muted, like sound itself was holding its breath. The silence was worse than the noise. I wasn't afraid of them anymore. Not really. What terrified me now was us I kept thinking about what we'd done earlier that day. We'd sent away the only people who might have been able to fight alongside us friends who had turned up with old rifles, farm tools, even a few stolen explosives. They wouldn't have lasted long, sure, but at least they would have stood between us and the advancing wall of death. Instead, we told them to go. Correction, Martha told them to go. And I didn't stop her. Why? I murmured under my breath, my eyes locked on the glint of metal in the distance. Why on Mars did we send them away? Beside me, Martha didn't even look my way. Mesfin, she said quietly, trust. I was about to demand an actual explanation when I felt it the first faint tremor under my boots. Subtle like a pulse in the ground. Martha, she smiled. Not a warm smile. Not a smug one. This was different. This was the smile of someone who knew. We wait, she said again. The tremors grew, rippling through the rope into my arms. Dust sifted down from the sky in lazy spirals, and the air took on that electric heaviness you get before lightning strikes. I could taste the static on my tongue. The enemy was closer now, close enough to see the details of their armor, the pulse of their weapon ports charging up. The front line didn't slow, didn't hesitate, Martha. My voice was a warning and a question all at once. Hold your ground, she ordered, eyes locked on the horizon. Then it hit hard. The ground shuddered violently, a deep subterranean roar rolling toward us like a wave. I nearly lost my footing, the rope snapping taut against my arm. The enemy's perfect formation wavered. Some stopped, others stumbled. The machines in the back shifted uneasily, stabilizers digging into the soil. What is that? I yelled over the growing thunder. Martha's smile widened just enough for me to catch it. Our answer. Something under the Martian crust was waking up. The roar beneath our feet grew until it felt like the whole planet was trying to shake us loose. The enemy finally broke formation, not from fear, but from necessity, as they stumbled to adjust their footing. Several of their machines sank an inch into the trembling dust, hydraulics whining to keep them upright. Now, Martha said the word hit me harder than the tremors. From somewhere far ahead, beyond, the enemy's front line a series of sharp, concussive booms rolled across the plain. The ground split in jagged scars, and sudden geysers of dust erupted skyward. Soldiers scattered, their perfect lines dissolving into chaos. I gripped the rope harder, my heart hammering. What is that? Ears, she said simply, and then I saw them not machines from Earth. These were ours. Martian low, insect-like drilling rigs, their armored shells painted in the red and white patterns of the western colony. They burst from beneath the surface like predators breaching water, then dove again, leaving sinkholes in their wake. Each carried a warhead strapped to its underside, and each one detonated after it vanished underground. The explosions weren't huge, no, fiery spectacle, but they were precise, surgical. They tore out the ground under the enemy's heaviest, machines dropping them into pits before their crews even knew what was happening. The enemy soldiers started firing blindly into the dust, laser bolts cutting through the haze, but the burrowers never stayed above ground long enough to be hit. Turned to Martha, my throat dry. You planned this? She didn't answer right away. Her gaze stayed fixed on the enemy, her jaw tense. The Eastern Colony has been testing these for years, she finally said. They were meant for mining. We repurposed them. I should have been relieved. Instead, my stomach churned. The burrowers were brilliant, but they weren't enough. For every machine they crippled, the enemy had 10 more pushing forward. And Martha knew it. "We can't win this outright," she admitted. "We're not here to destroy them all. We're here to buy time for the others to mobilize, for the colonies to unite." A blast tore through the ground, less than 100 meters from our rope line, showering us with grit. I coughed in too. My helmet, the filters struggling to keep up. "Martha," my voice was ragged, "if this doesn't stop them, it will," she cut in, "because the next phase isn't just underground." Before I could ask what she meant, a shadow passed overhead. I looked up and saw them, dozens of small, disc-shaped drones, their underbellies glowing faintly. They moved like a school of fish weaving between the incoming fire. Martha didn't flinch. Time for the Martian Games to begin. The drones struck first. They swooped low over the enemy's front lines, dropping small, disc-shaped charges that stuck to armor and detonated in sharp, contained blasts. Machines went dark instantly, their systems fried. Soldiers dove for cover if. You could call diving into Martian dust cover, as a haze of static and smoke rolled over them. The burrowers didn't stop. Every time a drone attack scattered the enemy, another subterranean explosion ripped a hole in their formation. The perfect mechanical precision of their march was gone. Now it was chaos, and chaos has a smell: hot metal, scorched dust, and the faint ozone tang of overworked laser rifles. "Martha," I shouted over the din. "They're still pushing forward." "They have to," she shouted back. "If they stop, they're dead where they stand." She yanked at her own safety rope, unfastening it with a flick of her wrist. "Stay here." "No." The word left my mouth before I could think, but it didn't matter. The next second, the enemy's second wave broke through the wall of Dust 5 soldiers in reflective armor, weapons up, moving fast. They weren't heading for Martha. They were coming for me. I dropped into a crouch just as the first laser blast sliced overhead, the beam scorching a smoking groove in the post behind me. My instincts screamed run, but my boots felt welded to the ground. One of the soldiers closed the distance, raising a sidearm. I saw my own reflection in his visor, a wide-eyed, terrified man holding nothing but rope. A sharp crack split the air. The soldier's visor spider-webbed with fractures, and he dropped, his weapon spinning into the dust. I turned to see Martha, crouched low, firing a compact energy pistol from beneath her coat. "Move, Mesfin," she barked. I stumbled forward, diving for the fallen soldier's weapon. My fingers closed around the grip, heavy and cold. The HUD in my helmet flashed a quick auto link to the rifle's targeting system. The second soldier fired. My reflex was ugly but fast. I squeezed the trigger, the recoil jarring my arms. The blast hit him center mass, throwing him back into the dust. 3 left. The ground bucked again, another burrower detonating nearby. A fresh plume of grit blinded the enemy, for just long enough for me and Martha to scramble to a low ridge of rock. She kept firing in controlled bursts. I tried to match her, my shots less precise but fueled by raw panic. A metallic shriek cut through the chaos, a disabled enemy mech tipping into a fresh sinkhole. For a moment, the enemy's attention shifted, their formation splintering further. "Now's our exit," Martha snapped. She grabbed my arm and hauled me toward a narrow cut in the ridge. The rope still dangled from my wrist, dragging behind me like an afterthought. We slid down into the cut just as another drone formation screamed overhead, their underbellies glowing brighter this time. They weren't dropping EMP charges anymore, these were explosive. The ridge behind us erupted, swallowing the spot where we'd been standing seconds before. We ran without speaking, the sound of war muffled by the walls of the cut. My chest heaved, my pulse hammering in my ears. The pistol in, my hand felt heavier with each step, but I couldn't let it go. Not now. When we finally reached the end of the cut, Martha stopped, leaning against the wall. Her visor darkened against the swirling dust. "That," she said between breaths, "was the easy part." We didn't get 30 seconds before the ridge shook again, this time from above. A jagged rain of rock slammed down, forcing us into a crouch. The cut we just escaped through collapsed behind us with a choking cloud of dust. There was no going back. Martha tapped her helmet com. "Team B, status." "Only static," answered she, glanced at me. "We're on our own." I tried to keep my breathing even, but my lungs burned from the dust. The pistol felt slippery in my grip, the metal warm from the last exchange. "What now?" "Forward," she said without hesitation. Already moving, I followed, every step, deeper into the maze of jagged rock formations. The sky above was just a sliver tinted gold through the haze. Somewhere behind us the fighting still raged, the low hum of mechs, the hollow pop of burrower detonations, but here the sound was muted, replaced by a different noise. A metallic clicking. We froze. Martha motioned for silence, her visor turning toward a shadow ahead. At first I thought it was just another drone, a small disc-shaped scout like before, but this one wasn't flying. It crawled along the rock wall on jointed legs, its surface bristling with sensors. "Recon unit," Martha whispered over the private channel. "Southern make. If it sees us, they'll know exactly where we are." I raised my pistol. She stopped me with a hand. "No shooting. They'll hear it." Then what? She was already moving, low and fast, pulling a short blade from her belt. In one fluid motion, she vaulted onto the wall, jammed the blade into the crawler's sensor cluster, and twisted. The machine convulsed with a short burst of sparks before dropping silently to the ground. "Clear," she said, pulling the blade free. My admiration for her skill lasted exactly 3 seconds, until we heard the boots. Not just one pair, many. We into the shadow of an overhang just as a squad of Southern soldiers emerged from the far passage. They moved in a staggered diamond formation, rifles sweeping the rock maze. Martha's eyes met mine through the visor. "We can't outgun them." The squad passed within meters of our hiding spot. My pulse was so loud I was sure they could hear it. The lead soldier paused, scanning the shadows right where we were. That was when the ground saved us again. A Distant rumble grew into a deep vibration under our boots. A moment later, a burrower broke through the passage floor directly under the squad, swallowing 2 soldiers instantly before the rest could react. The survivors scrambled, shouting, firing wildly into the dust. Martha grabbed my arm. "Move." We sprinted deeper into the maze, but the path narrowed fast. The walls pressed in until we had to move single file. My helmet HUD warned of motion ahead fast, low to the ground. "What is it?" I called. She didn't answer. Then the shape burst into view. Not a soldier, not a mech, something alive. 4 legs, sinewy muscle under dusty fur, eyes reflecting the faint light. It was lean, fast, and far too comfortable here. Mars Jackal. Martha breathed it, growled a sound that was more vibration than noise, and then lunged. It must have been about a month ago when we began negotiating with the eastern colonies to join us in our war against the miners of the South. Their lives mirrored ours. Agricultural societies spread across the red planet, tucked away and sprawling. Underground cities. The first time I visited one of those cities, Barrow, nestled at the base of a massive mountain, I wasn't even supposed to be there. I wasn't a diplomat nor a negotiator. I went because Martha went. And where she went, I followed. We traveled in a turb, the massive oval-shaped machine gliding along the planet's power cables. I'd never flown in one before. On Earth, they were obsolete, found only in amusement parks or dusty VR sims. Here, they were lifelines as Barrow's Mountain loomed in the distance. The turb shuddered, caught in a Martian dust storm. Sand rattled the windows like a hail of bullets. The captain swerved us through, dropping altitude until the storm was only a swirling memory in our wake. Then I saw it, water streaking down the glass. "Rain. Mesfin," Martha whispered, her breath fogging the inside of her helmet. "It's raining." When the turb doors opened, chaos erupted. Adults rushed into the open, arms outstretched, spinning like children. Some dropped to their knees, faces tilted skyward, mouths open as if they could drink the sky itself. Their laughter echoed off the mountain walls, and then there was Martha. Her helmet discarded, hair plastered to her face, eyes gleaming with tears of joy. She seized my hands. "It's the first rain of my life. Isn't it magnificent?" I nodded dumbly, the weight of history pressing on me. 2 centuries of terraforming, and now water fell from Martian skies. For one fleeting moment, it felt like hope itself was pouring down on us, but then pain shot through my leg. I stumbled back into the turb, lifting my pant leg to reveal the swollen bruise from last week's Kerbo fight. The storm outside was nothing compared to what awaited me in the arena. The Kerbo ring smelled of dust, sweat, and anticipation. Crowds roared, feet stomping against the steel floor. Fighters wore only shorts, bodies glistening under the arena lights, each clutching a Kerbo stick, a padded rod that still managed to break bones, and pride in equal measure. My teammate Ichiro was bleeding when I joined him. A thin crimson line streaked his temple. He chuckled bitterly, muttering about unfair referees before staggering away toward the medics. His place on the bench still felt warm when my name boomed over the loudspeakers. I stepped into the ring. Across from me stood Marco's broad shoulders, hard eyes, and the cruel smile of a man who enjoyed breaking others. The referee's hand cut the air. The fight began. Marcos lunged first, faster than I expected. His stick whistled past my face, close enough to feel the air split. I twisted, blocked, barely managing to deflect his next strike. The crowd erupted, half in shock, half in bloodlust. He pressed forward, every blow a thunderclap against my defenses. My arms burned, ribs screamed with each impact. When I finally countered striking, his arm relief surged through me. I turned instinctively toward Martha, searching for her eyes in the crowd. She was smiling. That split second of distraction cost me. Marcos' stick cracked against my skull. Pain exploded white-hot across my vision. I staggered, the world tilting. His follow-up slammed into my ribs, then my thigh, each strike a hammer, driving me deeper into the earth. "Come on, Mesfin." Ichiro's voice rang from somewhere, muffled by the ringing in my ears. I lifted my stick, desperate, and landed another weak strike on Marcos. It barely slowed him. He advanced again, fury blazing in his eyes. The crowd roared for more, and then I saw her again, Martha, still smiling. Not mockery, not malice, something else. Pride, amusement? I couldn't tell. All I knew was the weight of her gaze pressed on me heavier than Marcos's blows. Pain blurred with shame. My grip faltered. The referee's countdown began, muffled, through the pounding in my skull. My body screamed to fight, but my spirit caved. Stop. I hurled the stick to the ground. The sound of it clattering against the steel was drowned out by cheers, jeers, and the referee declaring Marcos the victor. Defeat tasted bitter later. Martha tended my wounds with a salve that smelled of crushed herbs and boiling water. Her hands were gentle, her tone lighter than I deserved. "You didn't surrender," she said softly. "You endured. That's what matters." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her how humiliated I felt, how her smile had haunted me in the ring. But as her hands worked over my bruises, her presence soothed me, and when she whispered, "You were brave, Mesfin. That's the man I love," the pain dulled. Still, in the back of my mind, I could hear the rain of Barrow City, a reminder that even on Mars, where victories were scarce, hope still fell from the sky. As we descended toward Barrow City, the barren ridges gave way to signs of ingenuity. Towering wind turbines cut elegant arcs against the Martian sky, and rows of solar panels shimmered like glass lakes. Behind them, a rectangular metallic shelter welcomed our turb, its surface dust-streaked but sturdy inside. The elevator hummed as we descended. The shaft's reflective walls magnified the sense of anticipation, and when the doors finally opened, the world of Barrow spilled before us. Unlike the domed cities of the north, Barrow stretched out in long horizontal chambers. Bioluminescent plants lined the walkways, casting a soft emerald glow over crowds of laughing residents. Colorful lights swayed overhead, and a heady scent of spices and roasted grain clung to the air. That night, the city was alive. Lanterns hung across the plaza for the Festival of Rain. celebrating the rare condensation event that brought precious water from the Martian sky. The hall was alive with music drums echoing with a rhythm that reminded me of northern Ethiopia. Martha and I were swept into the dance, laughing as strangers pulled us into circles. The food was rich with teff, roasted vegetables, and a sweetness that tugged at my memory of earth. For the first time in weeks, I felt light again. Martha's laughter was infectious, her joy burning away the shadows of war. Yet beneath it all, I sensed the unease of what loomed beyond Barrow's celebration the next morning. Martha left for her political meetings. I wandered through the farming tunnels instead. Towering rows of teff swayed in artificial breezes, nourished by hydroponics. Farmers greeted me warmly, proud of their harvests. One man wiped his brow and said, "Teff is stubborn, just like us. It thrives where nothing else will." I left the tunnels with a deep respect for Barrow's resilience. But that night, the fragility of our safety revealed itself. Martha returned glowing with triumph. We convinced the eastern cities they'll resist the southern colony with us. I smiled, though unease gnawed at me. "Then war is certain?" She hesitated, then forced a lighter tone. "Let's not talk about that tonight. Walk with me." We slipped into a new, unfinished tunnel. The air was cool, damp, and silent except for our footsteps. Her flashlight carved trembling beams across stone walls, past trickles of water. "This will be farmland soon," she explained. "Maybe coffee, maybe cotton." At the tunnel's end, an old water tanker sat rusting. We sat beside it, recalling our first kiss a month ago under a Martian sunset. For a brief moment, the fear of war dissolved. Then the earth groaned. A deafening crack split the silence as the ceiling above us gave way. Stones rained down, choking the tunnel in dust. I grabbed Martha's arm, dragging her toward the tanker as boulders sealed the passage we had come from. When the rumble ended, all that remained was darkness. Our flashlight flickered weakly. We were trapped. Martha's voice trembled for the Chirmena. "First time. No one knows we came this far in." Panic pressed in on me like the collapsing walls. I forced myself to breathe. There has to be another way. We searched the debris-strewn tunnel, coughing through the dust. My foot struck metal around its surface, buried beneath gravel. Clearing it, we uncovered a rusted digger machine, an old model used in the city's construction. "Do you think it still works?" Martha whispered. I brushed dust from the console. The screen flickered faintly to life, running on a reserve cell. It might. Together we climbed inside. The controls were sluggish, but when I pressed the ignition, the machine groaned, then roared awake. Its drill arm shuddered forward, grinding into the collapsed stone. It was grueling work. The cabin shook violently as rocks cracked apart. Sweat stung my eyes, and Martha's hands were raw from steadying the controls. But we pressed on, carving a narrow escape path. Finally, after what felt like hours, a draft of fresh air swept into the cab. A shaft of light pierced the dust. With one last heave, the drill broke through to an open chamber. We stumbled out, coughing, our bodies trembling with exhaustion. Before us stretched the familiar glow of Barrow City, its laughter and music drifting. Faintly from the plaza, Martha collapsed against the digger, her chest heaving. She looked at me and let out a shaky laugh. Well, so much for a peaceful walk. Despite everything, the dust, the fear, the war waiting outside, we laughed together. Because we had survived. Because Barrow still stood. And because, no matter the darkness, we could carve our own way back to the light. "3 months ago, I made my first journey to Malik, the Southern Colony's capital and Mars's largest city. With over 100,000 residents and the planet's only fully industrialized hub, Malik pulsed with ambition, industry, and menaced. We boarded the Turb at dawn in Harla City, excitement sparking in the cold Martian air. After a supply stop at Mariner Valley, where future Mariner City clawed itself out of red dust, we pushed onward. Martha, always bright-eyed, spoke of living there someday. Marcos, smug as ever, made it clear he'd follow her there, with or without an invitation. His words left a bitter taste in my mouth. By the time we reached Malik, my unease had only deepened. The sprawling steel and glass city shimmered like a predator under the thin Martian sun. "Welcome to the city of dreams," Marcos sneered. As we disembarked, "Hope you're ready to fight for your place here, Mesvin." His voice dripped venom, and I could feel the challenge in his eyes. Beneath the surface, Malik revealed its true form, a colossal, spiraling metropolis descending into the Martian crust. Elevators plunged us past 9 levels of tunnels and bridges, the artificial reservoir glimmering at the bottom like a heart pumping life through steel veins. The engineering was breathtaking, but the city felt alive in another way watchful. Hostile, dangerous security officers shadowed our every move, insisting it was for our protection. Still, the moment we stepped out of the final shop, I felt it, the prickling heat of being watched. A group of men lingered near the entrance, eyes fixed on us with predatory precision. "Martha," I whispered, my pulse spiking, "we need to go." The officers hurried us along, but the strangers followed, weaving through the crowd. Then came the shout, "Stop! Run!" I yelled, seizing Martha's hand. We bolted through a narrow passage, boots pounding against metal. The air was thick with noise, our ragged breaths, pounding footsteps, the echo of pursuit. "Where do we go?" Martha gasped. "Just keep moving." We twisted through tunnels until I spotted a service alley. Ducking behind crates, we held our breath as the men stormed past. For a fleeting second, silence returned, then footsteps approached again. They were doubling back, this way. I hissed, dragging Martha toward a half-open maintenance door. We slipped inside, swallowed by the darkness of a service tunnel. The hum of machinery vibrated through the walls, masking our steps. But behind, the hunters had entered too, the echoes of pursuit closing in like a tightening noose. Adrenaline took over. We sprinted deeper into the labyrinth, the air growing stale and heavy. The tunnels seemed endless, a twisting maze of shadows and dread. My mind screamed with one truth. We had to get out of Malik now. Hours later, just before dawn, we finally reached the surface. Malik still glowed with its perpetual artificial daylight. A city that never slept, a city that never forgave. Martha. wanted to stay longer, but my nerves were frayed raw. Even Marco's usual jabs carried a sharper edge. When Martha asked whether Malik might be preparing for war, Marco's, usually so arrogant, grew solemn. Trust me, I've seen armies building up before. Malik reeks of it. His words chilled me more than the chase. Relief washed over me only when Harla City's entrance shelter loomed ahead. For the first time, I admitted the truth aloud. Malik is the worst place I've seen since coming to Mars. But respite was fleeting. Back in Harla, Marcos cornered me, his tone dripping with menace. I hear you're chasing after Martha. Just remember, I've got connections. You can't win against me. I met his glare with steel. Martha isn't a prize, Marcos. She makes her own choices. For the first time, his smirk faltered, replaced by something darker. We'll see about that. He turned away, but his threat lingered like smoke in my lungs as Martha and I walked on. I couldn't shake the feeling. Malik hadn't just been a city. It had been a warning. And Marcos, my rival, my shadow, wasn't done. At first, it felt like the ground fell out from under me. My stomach lurched as if I were plummeting down a collapsing shaft. The sensation was dizzying, disorienting. I wasn't falling, yet my body felt weightless, unmoored, as if Mars itself had let go of me. Then the impossible happened. Pebbles, stones, dust, all of it began to rise. Slowly at first, then steadily, drifting upward in a surreal dance, and then people. Every fighter, every ally, even Martha beside me, lifted into the air, limbs flailing like puppets cut from their strings. I looked down. My boots had left. The ground panic surged in my chest. Martha, what's happening to us? I shouted, voice cracking. Her calm reply cut through the chaos. This is Seabeat. We just canceled gravity in this sector. Hold the safety rope tight. Stay as close to the ground as you can. Her words steadied me. My hands clamped down on the thick synthetic rope, gripping it until my knuckles ached. The world spun as my body floated upward, twisting until I dangled upside down. Around me, others clutched ropes, flailing like frightened monkeys in a storm. I turned my visor toward the enemy encampment. Their soldiers were drifting too, yanked skyward like broken marionettes. Some clutched each other in panic. Others reached uselessly for weapons spinning out of reach. The sight almost made me laugh, but fear smothered the thought. So, it just cancels gravity? I called out, my voice thin against the chaos. Not exactly, Martha said, her tone clipped, urgent. It redirects gravity, pulls us toward its source, the satellite overhead. Without a rope, they won't just float, they'll be dragged off-world. Cold dread clawed through me. So they're going to drift into space? They'll wish it were that simple, Martha muttered grimly. The real danger is, look out. I cut her off a rock, dislodged by the sudden shift, hurtled through the air. It struck her shoulder with a sickening crack. She cried out, her hand ripped from the rope. Martha, I didn't think. I let go of my own rope, hurling myself toward her, body spinning wildly in the weightless chaos. My hands found her arm, fingers locking tight as I steadied her. "Talk to me. Are you okay?" Her face twisted in pain. "My shoulder's broken, but I'm still here." I pulled her against me, securing her with my rope. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst. Across the field, Murga's voice boomed over comms, steady and commanding despite the madness. "They've risen high enough. Signal the satellite now." Through clenched teeth, Martha raised her good arm and pressed her comm switch. Her voice was calm despite the agony. "Let the rain begin." And just like that, Seabed ended. Gravity slammed back into us. We plummeted. Hundreds of bodies, rocks, and debris crashing down. My stomach flipped as the world roared back to meet us. I twisted beneath Martha, bracing myself, and caught her in my arms just as we struck the ground. The impact drove the air from my lungs, but I held on. She gasped, then let out a shaky laugh. "You caught me. Saved my life again." "Not yet," I rasped, scanning the battlefield. "We're still in it." All around, soldiers scrambled. To their feet, shaken but alive. The Southerners were less lucky. Many slammed into jagged stone or landed too far from cover. But the survivors were regrouping fast, shouting, weapons already rising. "Murga," I bellowed. "We need to move. Now, fall back to the secondary perimeter." He roared, voice cutting through the din. He pulled Martha close, helping her run despite her injury. Explosions thundered across the field, the enemy unleashing their counterattack. Dust rained down, smoke choking the air. "Faster," Martha urged. Even as blood soaked her suit, we sprinted through chaos, stumbling over debris, bolts of plasma scorching the ground around us. She shoved me aside just as a boulder crashed down where I'd been, the shockwave rattling my teeth. "Thanks," I gasped. "Don't mention it, move." We dashed the last stretch, soldiers screaming, fire and dust engulfing the field. As we crossed into the safety line of the secondary perimeter, my chest heaved, lungs raw. Martha leaned against me, her face pale but fierce. The war hadn't ended. In the relay station, it hadn't ended with our escape. It was here again. Bigger, closer, hungry, and this time it had come for everyone. "Come on now, that fall couldn't possibly kill you. A broken leg at worst," I told Martha, though my hands still trembled with adrenaline as I set her down. She gave me a sharp look, half playful, half pained. "A broken leg plus a broken shoulder? I'm pretty sure that combination could kill me." Her arms lingered around my neck, a moment longer than necessary, as if reluctant to let go. "How's the shoulder?" I asked as I eased her upright. "Not broken," she admitted after carefully rotating it with a wince. "Bruised, maybe. Painful enough. Into the shelter now," Marcos shouted. His urgency cut through our moment like a blade. Behind him, the others scrambled inside, their faces carved with fear. Martha and I slipped in last. I slammed the heavy door shut, its metal echo rolling through the cramped chamber like a death knell. My pulse thundered. "What happens now?" "This," Martha said, her calm unnerving. "This is the worst part of Sibet. What goes up must come down." We hide from the rain. Through a narrow viewing slit, I watched the sky itself collapse. Rocks, pebbles, machines, even broken bodies rained from the heavens. The sound was apocalyptic, metal shrieking, stone shattering, muffled screams lost in the storm. Then came the explosions, one after another, rippling through the ground until our shelter quaked around us. And then silence. I swallowed hard. What? Now? Martha's eyes softened, though her voice was heavy. Now we go out and search. Rescue if anyone survived, but don't expect much. Marcos tightened his jaw. Medical packs, all of you. Move. Reluctantly, I followed. The air outside was thick with dust, the ground gouged by fresh craters. Every step southward dragged at my soul. You look pale, Martha, Marcos muttered. You should stay back. He's right, I added, protective instinct flaring. You need rest. Her glare was sharp enough to cut steel. I'm not. Staying behind. She quickened her pace, pushing ahead of us both. The battlefield revealed itself piece by piece, and it was worse than I'd imagined. The southern column was annihilated, limbs and torsos strewn across the dust, craters still smoldering where tanks had impacted at terminal velocity. Machines twisted into heaps of glowing wreckage. The air stank of iron and burnt circuitry. No survivors asked. None at first glance Amerga's. Deep voice rumbled through coms, weighted with grim authority. Strip weapons and ammunition. Leave the bodies. Their dead belong to their families. I hesitated, bile in my throat. But shouldn't we bury them? No scavengers here? Merga replied coldly. Let Mars keep them for now. I bent to pry a rifle from a shattered hand, my stomach churning. This planet lives up to its name, Mars, god of war. Martha's voice was steady, but her eyes searched mine. Mars was a god of agriculture first. The war came later. Our Mars, the planet, is agricultural too, peaceful mostly. This is only our second war in 200 years. Can Earth say the same? I exhaled slowly. No, on Earth, war is constant. For 2 centuries, there's been a battle somewhere. Almost every month. I taught history, I know. Humanity's story is war from start to finish. Still, I've never read about a battlefield like this. One side utterly annihilated, the other untouched. Her eyes narrowed, sparking with thought. Not even the Exodus? Pharaoh's army wiped out while the other side walked free? That's scripture, not history, I countered, shaking my head. But what if scripture was history? She pressed. What if miracles were only misremembered sciences? I had no answer, and in the silence the weight of the devastation pressed heavier against my chest. Then a sound faint, fragile, a cry that sliced through the silence. Did you hear that? My voice was hoarse, almost afraid to hope. Martha's eyes lit up. Marcos stiffened. It could be a survivor, she whispered. We froze, straining. Help, please, someone help. The cry was real go. I urged, adrenaline surging anew. We scrambled across the wreckage, hearts pounding, following the desperate voice. Each step forward carried us deeper into ruin, toward the thin thread of hope that anyone had survived the storm of Mars. The war wasn't finished. Not yet, and neither was our duty. Later that day, Martha and I sat together in her home, the aroma of strong coffee curling through the air. I wrapped a bandage around her bruised shoulder, but her eyes were elsewhere haunted, weighed down by the wreckage we had just walked through. I tried to pull her back from the darkness. So, who actually invented Seabed? That thing felt like a miracle and a curse at the same time. She sighed, then straightened, slipping back into her teacher's voice. The Northerners, Dimas Lure Research Lab. It was never meant for war, Mesfin. It began as a transportation project, a breakthrough in artificial gravity. At first, they only lifted small objects, then whole ships, and then, when the war started, the Council asked them to weaponize it. Her tone hardened. That's the difference. The North are our kin. They built both East and West. The South belongs to Earth. Mining companies, mercenaries. Greed, not family. That's why the North chose us. I nodded, though her words didn't ease the knot in my chest. So your family? They're all still in the North, except my sister. She came here, stayed with me a while. But last year she left for Newer City with some boy. Her gaze drifted, eyes clouding with sadness. I covered her hand with mine. And your family, are they famous? She laughed bitterly. You could say that. My great-great-grandparents were the first Martian settlers. People thought they were mad, but they proved humanity could start over here. They built the first settlement where races meant nothing, only survival. That was their gift, uniting all people as one race, the human race. Her voice cracked, just slightly, and now everyone expects me to live up to them, to be extraordinary, but I'm not. I pulled her closer. Being you is enough. Brave, stubborn, selfless, that's more than enough. Her lips trembled into a smile, but the sadness clung. She changed the subject. The truth about Seabed? It's dangerous. If it's miscalibrated, it doesn't just lift objects. It takes people, whole structures. That's why we cling to ropes. That's why. Her voice trailed. We sat in silence, the weight of invention twisted into destruction pressing down. On us, the next morning, the city gathered. The council meeting was held in the open air of the city garden, under a sky the color of rust. Murga's voice carried through the speakers. We defended Mariner Valley, but war does not bring peace. It only brings more war. We must find another way, a sustainable peace. I slipped quietly to the back, sitting beside Eden, who smiled in greeting. My eyes found Martha at the speaker's table. Even bruised, she radiated conviction. Her speech lit the crowd. Let us share the valley. We can live on the surface, and let the South mine beneath. We cannot undo the lives lost, but we can prevent losing more. Her words lifted me until the Southern response arrived. A rejection, blunt, absolute. They didn't want land. They wanted control, and the news spread like poison. The International Space Agency condemned us. One more use of C-bit, they warned, and they would cut us off entirely. The ultimatum hung over us like a blade. The crowd dissolved uneasy. Whispers. A betrayal in the air. We knew the South was still smuggling weapons, mercenaries. We knew another war was coming. That afternoon, we returned to the wreckage of the battlefield to finish gathering supplies. The silence there was suffocating, and then we heard it. A cry, thin, weak, human. We followed the sound, weaving through shattered tanks and broken stone until we found them not soldiers, but workers, miners. Their suits were battered, their faces blackened with dust. Not fighters, just men and women dragged here to dig for resources and thrown into the front lines when the war came. One, his lips bloodied, whispered hoarsely, We never wanted this. We were forced. We're just miners." Martha knelt beside him, tears brimming in her eyes, and in that instant all of her talk of peace, of family, of legacy, it all fused into one truth. This war wasn't soldier against soldier. It was people, ordinary people caught in the gears of Earth's greed. We carried the miners back to camp, not as enemies but as proof. Proof that the South's war machine was built on broken lives. And as the Martian night closed in, I realized the real war hadn't even begun. Two years later, Martha and I stepped into the heart of Mariner City, and for a moment, war felt like a distant memory. The massive semicircular glass dome stretched against the valley wall, shimmering like a jewel in the thin Martian light. Below it, two artificial lakes sparkled. Beyond them, neat rows of farms stretched green and alive against the red dust. "It feels surreal," Martha whispered, her eyes alight with wonder. "Mesfin, look at it. We've built a city on Mars." I smiled, though part of me struggled to believe it too. After so much bloodshed, so many nights of fear, the city felt like a promise finally fulfilled. The underground section was another marvel. A sprawling labyrinth of tunnels alive with chatter, machinery, and children's laughter. For a few days, we allowed ourselves to breathe, to believe, to hope. But hope never lasts long on Mars. It was Ichu who brought the news, his voice shaking as he stared at the satellite monitor. "They are coming, Mesfin." I took the screen. My chest tightened. Mercenaries heavily armed, disciplined, their armor gleaming with Earth-made alloys. Not colonists defending a home, but killers bought with credits. "They've rebuilt faster than we thought," I muttered. Martha leaned closer, her brow furrowed. "No, look at how they move. These aren't colonists. These are trained soldiers." The monitor flickered. The enemy dropped to their knees. "What are they doing?" Martha asked. Ichu's face drained of color. "Prayers before the slaughter." They've stopped just outside the range of our guns. The first shot cracked across the valley, tearing into the earth near our trenches. The sound echoed through Mariner like a death knell. "All units. Positions." Martha barked into the cum, her voice sharp, commanding. The city erupted into organized chaos. Families ran to shelters. Fighters scrambled into trenches. Children cried as the ground shook with each impact. The Western Army held 3 lines. Martha commanded the left flank, our Eastern and Western volunteers. Marcos led the advance fighters. Merga commanded the reserves. I was in the trenches, gripping a rifle that felt far too old and fragile against the sleek weapons we faced. Gunfire erupted. Our men returned fire, but their printed rifles spat weak, inaccurate bursts. The mercenaries cut through us like blades through fabric. "Stop firing," Ichu screamed into the comms. "They're out of range. You're wasting ammunition." I cursed, watching smoke rise where our comrades had fallen. Martha's eyes blazed. "We can't let them pin us down like cattle." Marcos flanked them. "Mesfin, you'll lead the diversion." I turned sharply. "That's suicide." "No, it's strategy. Draw their fire. Buy Marcos time. We don't have another choice." I locked eyes with her. "If I go, you stay behind the line." Her grip tightened on my arm. "Don't you dare die out there." I kissed her forehead once, fast and hard. "Then don't let me." The plan snapped into motion. Marcos rallied his best fighters to the flank. I gathered volunteers willing to be the bait. Their eyes were wide with fear, but none stepped back. "Remember," I told them, "we're not here to win this fight. We're here to survive it." Keep them looking at us. Keep them firing. We charged from the trenches, dust billowing around our boots. Gunfire ripped the air, sparks lighting up the valley like a storm. "Now!" I shouted, diving forward as rounds hissed past my ear. Open fire loud, reckless, wasteful to draw every enemy eye our way. I could see the mercenaries shifting, turning, focusing on us. And beyond them, through the haze of smoke and dust, Marcos and his fighters began their silent arc along the ridge. The ground shook with each impact, screams blending with thunder. For one terrifying moment, I thought we'd all be cut down. Before the flank struck, but then I saw Martha on the line, her voice roaring through the comms. "For Mariner, for our home." Her cry lifted us, and we fought harder, holding the enemy's gaze as night fell over Mariner Valley. The battle had only just begun. Our city, our dream, was under siege. And for the first time since the war started, I wasn't sure if we would see the dawn. "Permission to move out and engage, sir." Marcos's voice crackled with urgency over the comms. His tone carried a trembling edge, the kind born of too many hours trapped under fire. I pressed my lips together, staring across the no-man's land of dust and fire. The mercenaries' lines shimmered in the heat. If we left the trenches now, their weapons would scythe us down before we even raised a rifle. "I don't think that's such a good idea," I answered, trying to keep my voice calm. My eyes flipped to Martha at her command station, her brow furrowed as she monitored the enemy's movements. She gave the faintest nod. She agreed. "We shall retreat to the city," Merga's voice boomed over the network. It was steady, but I caught the heaviness behind it. A retreat wasn't a plan, it was a slow death. The city is too far, sir. I cut in harsher than I intended. They'll mow us down before we get halfway there. But I hesitated, the words forming in my chest like a sin. I want to say something. Martha's eyes locked on mine. She saw the gamble behind my silence before I even spoke it aloud. She turned her come toward Merga. Mesfin has a point. If we retreat, we need to control how they follow. The words felt like stones on my tongue. We would use our own soldiers as bait. Orders rippled out. The right and left flanks began to retreat, their movements slow and deliberate, dragging dust clouds in their wake. I pressed flat into the trench, my body humming with dread. Falling for it, I whispered. Across the valley, the mercenaries surged forward like wolves catching the scent of blood. Stay low, I breathed to my men. My heart hammered against my ribs. I thought of the faces around me, not soldiers, not really farmers, students, mechanics, and here I was, asking them to lie still and wait for the moment to kill. For a long second, I wondered if that made me any different from the soulless mercenaries advancing on us. The mercenaries crept closer, their confidence swelling. My knuckles widened on my rifle. I heard one of my fighters, Tades, whisper a shaky prayer beside me. When they reached the invisible line I'd drawn in my mind, I swallowed hard and screamed. Now! We erupted from the trenches like demons from the red dust, unleashing a storm of fire. The valley echoed with thunder, smoke, and screaming. The mercenaries faltered, stumbling under the sudden barrage. Their tight formation fractured, and panic rippled through their lines. Keep firing. Don't let them regroup. Martha's command cut through the chaos. Her voice was iron. The mercenaries began to retreat, dragging their wounded with them. Victory clawed its way into our grasp. But it was victory painted red. When the last shot fell silent, the air reeked of smoke and blood. I stumbled out of the trench, chest heaving. Around me, our fighters were cheering, some laughing in wild relief. But my eyes fell on the ones who would never rise again, lay in the dust a few feet from where I'd given the signal. A neat hole in his chest, his prayer unfinished. His hand still clutched his rifle, as if even death hadn't convinced him to let go. The cheers rang, hollow in my ears. My stomach twisted. I had set the trap, and he had paid for it. Martha came to stand beside me, her shoulders tense. "We did it," she said softly. There was no triumph in her voice, only relief laced with grief. "Yes," I murmured, staring down at Tades's still face. "But at what cost?" Marcos approached, his face pale. "Report says we lost 32, dozens more wounded." His jaw clenched as his eyes swept the dead. "Some of them kids, Mesfin." His words cut deeper than any blade. I turned away, forcing myself to keep standing. Leaders weren't allowed to collapse. Not here. Not now. "We'll remember them," I said hoarsely, though the promise felt like ashes in my mouth. "We'll honor them." Martha put a hand on my shoulder. Her touch was firm, grounding. "We will. But right now we need to prepare for the next wave." This war isn't over. I drew in a sharp breath, forcing steel into my spine. Then we train them better. We arm them better. No more wasting lives on old rifles and desperation. If I'm going to gamble again, it won't be with unprepared men and women. The Martian sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the battlefield. Behind us, the survivors gathered, faces weary but alight with the fragile spark of hope. I looked back at the dead one last time before turning to the living. "Let's get to work," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "We have a future to protect." The transport hummed quietly as it carried us toward Harla City. The air inside was heavy part exhaustion, part grim determination. Merga sat across from me, his posture straight, his gaze sharp despite the toll of battle still etched on his face. "I wanted to thank you for the other day," he said suddenly, turning toward me. "It is because of your strategy that we won." I shifted uncomfortably, pride and unease wrestling in my chest. It wasn't my plan, just history. I remembered how armies of the past turned retreats into traps. "Don't be modest, Mesfin," Merga said firmly. "The ability to adapt strategy is leadership. I hope you will consider joining the council." "Someday." "I'd be honored," I said, though the truth gnawed at me. I wasn't sure if I had the heart to sit among those who made choices that cost lives. Martha squeezed my shoulder, grounding me. "We'd both be honored," she added softly. "If you're nominated, I'll vote for you." Marcos chimed in from the row behind us. He was grinning, but I could hear sincerity in his tone. Eden had brought light to his life, and since their marriage, his warmth had been a steady presence. Merga's reply cut through that moment of camaraderie. "Your vote may have to wait, Marcos. I am not even sure our colony will last 2 years." His words chilled the cabin, snuffing out our smiles. The silence that followed was heavier than the roar of engines. Dawn, Harla City loomed before us. We went straight into the council chamber, a circular hall, alive with tension. Leaders, officers, and citizens packed the seats, voices low but urgent. By the time Merga rose to address the assembly, hours of debate had already frayed nerves raw. "It is good news that we have defended Mariner City twice," he declared, his voice booming. "But we cannot allow this madness to claim more of our people. The council has decided, if provoked again, we shall not only defend, but eliminate all threats. If necessary, we will take Milkway City." Gasps rippled through the chamber. For the first time, I felt the weight of his intent. This wasn't defense. This was war. It is our right and responsibility to protect our home, Merga thundered. "Today we decide the destiny of this planet. No more interference from Earth. Today we are strong." The hall erupted into cheers. But as we left, my unease deepened. Did Merga just declare war on Earth? I whispered to Martha. Her jaw tightened. "They started this. We are only defending our planet." "Defending?" I shook my head. "This is the road to the first interplanetary war. How did it come to this?" Martha's eyes darkened. "Maybe the day they built that first mining city." "No," I countered quietly. It began 2 centuries ago on the day the settlement program was announced. Later that evening, we sat under the Martian stars, the council's words still echoing in my mind. Martha leaned against me, her voice soft. 200 years ago, there was a dreamer, she said. A man who poured his fortune into Mars, robots, tunnels, farms, ships. He wasn't alone. Others followed. My great-great-grandparents among them. I listened as her voice carried me back to the dawn of settlement. She was the first to set foot here, my great-grandmother. She wore a locket her whole life. Inside was a map of Earth. She left her world behind, but kept its memory close. She came for love. I pictured that woman stepping onto this barren world with nothing but hope and love to anchor her. And now, here we are, I murmured. Fighting to keep what she built, Martha nodded. History repeats, doesn't it? When gold was discovered, the southern colony boomed. Miners thought they'd return home rich. Most spent 20 years just paying off the cost of coming. Here, they never went back. It was a trap. Her tone sharpened. Greed brought them here, and greed keeps us at war. 99% of Mars is still uninhabited, but Earth's companies want all of it. I clenched my fists. The truth was bitter, but undeniable. She leaned closer. We've received reports. The southern colony is gathering an army in Malik City. A full invasion. The words felt like a blade sliding between my ribs. Then war is upon us again. Yes, Martha said, her eyes blazing. And we must be ready. We will defend our home just as they did. I raised my eyes to the crimson sky, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down on us. We were heirs to a dream, guardians of a fragile home, built by sacrifice and love. And now, once again, we were called to fight for it. They called their campaign Operation Ares, a name chosen to conjure dominance, war, and conquest. The southern colony meant to devour Mars whole. Our answer was Maximum Cibet, not just a counter-strategy, but a vow. This would be the battle that decided whether we lived free or not at all. The command center pulsed with urgency. Maps and tactical screens painting every wall in hues of blue and red. Murga's voice was iron as he briefed us. The South has built thousands of hover tanks and squadrons of flying war machines. Their target is clear, Mariner City. The room fell silent. You could hear the breath of every soul present, each one waiting for someone else to break the spell of fear. They want our city, I thought bitterly, but they'll choke on it. 2 days later, the horizon darkened, not with dust, but with engines. Their army filled the sky, a black tide of machines descending like vultures. They come prepared this time, I muttered to Martha beside me. Her eyes narrowed, unflinching. Yes, she said, but so do we. We had deployed recovery teams into our old trenches, the same scarred battlefield where blood had already soaked the soil. Familiar ground, but this time it felt like a trap set by fate itself. Our microsatellites fed us live streams of the enemy advance. Their formations stretched across kilometers, each machine a dark silhouette moving with predatory precision. "They've underestimated Seabeat," I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. "They won't survive the storm." Then came their ultimatum, a message broadcast across all channels: surrender Mariner City or be annihilated. I exchanged a look with Martha. Her lips tightened into a cold smile. "Tell them to go home," I said, voice steadied that defiance was delivered. The silence that followed was thicker than armor. Then a single projectile cut the air. It landed square in our trench. The explosion ripped the world apart. Stone and steel shattered. Smoke swallowed us. The ground lifted beneath my feet and hurled me backward. My ears screamed with the ringing of hell itself. "Martha!" I croaked, stumbling through the haze, lungs burning. "I'm here." Her voice, weak but alive. She was sprawled on the ground, blood blooming from her shoulder. Her face was pale, but her eyes still fierce. "I'm hurt, Mesfin," she whispered. I knelt beside her, my hands trembling as I pressed against the wound. No, stay with me. You'll be fine. Just stay awake." All around, chaos reigned. The trench was a graveyard. Screams of the dying, medics dragging broken bodies, the air choked with dust and fear. "Recovery team," I shouted hoarsely. "Stabilize the wounded. Get them out." But even as I gave the order, I knew we were drowning. Their firepower was relentless, their machines cutting us down with inhuman precision. Martha's hand clamped onto mine. "Mesfin, we can't just bleed here. Fight back, now." Her eyes locked onto mine, blazing with defiance through the pain, and in that instant, my fear broke. "Everyone who can stand," I roared, climbing to my feet, blood streaking my uniform. With me, the fighters rose from the wreckage one by one, battered, bleeding, but alive. A ragged army forged in fire. We don't run. We don't surrender. We strike. I looked at Martha, her face pale yet burning with resolve as she directed the medics with her uninjured arm. She nodded once go. Adrenaline surged through me as I turned back to my men. "They think they've broken us. They think Mariner City is theirs. Let's show them what it costs to touch our home." A roar rose from the trench. Not polished, not drilled raw, human, desperate, we surged forward into the teeth of the enemy, and as I led them across the bloodied field, I felt only one truth in my chest. This was no longer just a battle. This was the reckoning of Mars. Martha's glance was all the confirmation I needed. Pain, fire, and unshakable resolve burning in her eyes. Without hesitation, she keyed her intercom. "Activate maximum Sibet." The command center went still. The air itself seemed to hum, charged with invisible current. Static prickled my skin, as though the planet had taken a deep breath. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the enemy replied. That was just a warning shot. The message was calm, almost mocking. But before the words had even finished transmitting, their machines began to twitch, Buck and climbed first. It looked like some strange new maneuver, but we knew better. Sibit was in full effect now, pulling them upward, twisting their physics. Against them, their hovercraft shuddered, their flying tanks listing violently. Pilots fought controls that no longer obeyed. Entire squadrons drifted like leaves in a storm. Intercepted chatter filled our speakers. Stabilizers offline. Hold her steady. They'll shut it down, we'll glide back down, hold position. But the reprieve never came. Sibet did not stop. Earlier experiments had shown us what came next. Objects exposed to the maximum field first floated, then stretched, then ripped apart. And now, before our eyes, the Southern Army became unwilling test subjects. The first explosion lit the sky like a false sunrise. A flying tank burst, fuel igniting, debris cartwheeling downward in streaks of fire. Then another, and another. The Martian heavens became a furnace. Machines twisted grotesquely, exploding mid-air, raining fire and metal down upon the battlefield. What we had expected to be controlled destruction spiraled into apocalyptic chaos. Shut it down. Martha ordered, her voice tight. The technicians complied. The field faded. But the chain reaction had already begun. The explosions did not cease. The sky roared as war machines became firestorms, falling in pieces large enough to crush anything below. I turned to Martha only to see blood looming across her shoulder, her suit torn open. "You're hit." I dropped to her side, fumbling with the emergency sealant. She winced, but her voice was steady. "It's nothing. Seal it. Keep moving. We can't stop now." I pressed the spray patch over the breach, sealing the hiss of escaping air. "You'll live," I muttered, more prayer than promise. Her gaze flicked past me, searching. "Where's Ichu?" I followed her eyes and froze. He lay on his back in the dust, helmet shattered, face exposed to the cold Martian air. Lifeless. My brother in arms. My friend, no. I dropped to my knees, the world narrowing until it was just me and him. Memories flickered our laughter, our fights, his voice urging me on. Gone, all gone. Mesfin. Martha's voice yanked me back to reality. "We can't stay here." She was right. Around us, the battlefield was collapsing. Burning wreckage fell like meteors, the ground littered with shrapnel and screams. Our medics dragged the wounded, hands red with blood and grit. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stand. The grief carved itself into my chest, but there was no time to carry it now. Later, maybe, if we survived. Pull back. I shouted, "Get the injured out. Move." We retreated in staggered groups, dragging our dead and wounded with us. We didn't look back. The sky was still on fire, the wreckage of a Southern army falling like judgment by the time we reached the safety of Mariner City. 11 of ours were gone. 11 too many. Including Ichu, we had annihilated their force, erased them from the battlefield. But Victory felt like ash in my mouth. That night, as I walked the battered corridors, Martha at my side with her shoulder freshly bandaged, I knew what the cost of Sibit truly was. Not just the enemy dead, but ours. Always ours, and yet when? I looked at her bloody, limping, but still unbroken. I felt the fire rekindle. We had won, and we would keep winning. Not for glory, not even for revenge, but for Mars, for the ones already buried beneath its red soil. The war was far from over, but we were still alive, and that meant the fight had only just begun. A week after the fires of war had cooled, our banners rose above Moloch City. For the first time in history, the southern colony lay in Martian hands. The air was heavy with silence, broken only by the crackle of flags unfurling in the cold wind. The miners watched us with hollow eyes, no defiance, no fight left in them, only a fragile hope that maybe this change would end their suffering. I stood beside Martha in the city square, the dust of victory still clinging to us. "Can you believe it?" I asked, my voice carrying both wonder and exhaustion. "We've done it. Mars is ours." She didn't smile. Her gaze swept the horizon, as if searching for the next storm. "Victory is one thing," she said quietly. "Justice is another. These miners have lived as prisoners for generations. Now it's our responsibility to prove we are not the same as their masters." Before I could answer, a comms officer hurried toward us, his face pale. "Commander, Earth has responded. The mining corporations are furious. They've forced the space agency's hand. They're declaring war on Mars." The words hit like a blade to the chest. "War? Again?" My voice cracked. The officer nodded grimly. "They've even threatened us with nuclear retaliation." A chill swept over the crowd. Martha's jaw tightened, her fists clenched. "Then they still don't understand," she said, her voice a razor. "We're not subjects. We're not their colony. We are free." I drew in a breath, forcing steel into my voice. "Tell them what we've already told them. Mars is not afraid. We have the technology to alter Earth's orbit, to shatter the planet if they push us. Let them know our survival is not negotiable." The officer bowed his head and left. Later that day, word came. The space agency had folded. They demanded reparations, and we agreed. 20 years of payments, a price worth paying for sovereignty. In return, they recognized our independence, and with that, it was done. Mars was free. All 4 colonies stood united under one banner, the Martian Colonies Administration, or MACA. For the first time since our ancestors left Earth, we were one. "People." Martha's voice broke the silence as we looked over the city. "We've done more than win a war. We've broken chains that lasted 2 centuries. I nodded, though my chest ached with the memory of those we'd lost each, the fallen fighters, the unnamed miners who had died for Earth's greed. Their sacrifices had forged this moment. "What about the miners?" I asked. "They'll choose." Martha said, "Stay and join us, or return to Earth." Most have chosen to stay. They've suffered too long to trust Earth again. In the weeks that followed, the severance deepened. Earth declared a total embargo. No trade, no travel. No citizens allowed to set foot on the Red Planet again. They think it will kill us. I muttered bitterly. Martha's lips curved into the faintest smile. It might have once, not anymore, and she was right. With the mastery of Sibet, we had seized the reins of nature itself. We dragged icy comets into our skies, cracking them open until snow blanketed the valleys, and the atmosphere thickened by a third. Volcanoes on Jupiter's moons roared because we willed them to. Even now, asteroid by asteroid, we were assembling. A new planet, a new world to be born in 25 years. Our destiny is no longer chained to Earth, I said, awe rising in me as I spoke the words aloud. We're writing our own future among the stars. Martha's hand found mine, her eyes fierce, her voice certain. Together we'll build something greater than they ever dreamed. A home no one can take from us. A world born of struggle, sacrifice, and freedom. As the Martian sun dipped below the horizon, Malik City glowed in the twilight, no longer a monument to exploitation, but a cradle of independence, and as the shadows stretched across the red soil, I knew in my bones. This was not the end, was the beginning.